Good morning, friends. My name is Ashutosh Garg. I work as a solution provider with Furnace Improvements. Our company completed 25 years in fired heaters business in the US. We have been conducting free fired heater training webinars this year as a part of our Silver Jubilee celebrations. Welcome to our second training session on refinery fired heaters. We have a full house, more than 140 people have registered today, and I thank all of you for your time and interest. We are going to be having interactive presentation for 90 minutes. Please keep on sending your questions on the GoToWebinar platform. We had conducted session 1 on refinery fired heaters in April this year. All our previous webinars are available on the YouTube channel and also on the GoToWebinar. So this webinar is different from the webinars you must have attended before. We will be conducting this webinar through Kahoot. It's a game-based learning platform that makes learning very easy. So here is my request to all of you to get the full experience. Please download their app or go to www.kahoot.it. The pin is already there, 1277333. So I want all of you to log in, and I want to assure you your identity is completely anonymous. Nobody will be knowing about your identity. We have put the game setting in such a way so that even I don't know who is there. So let's try to get the game started, and we will hope all of you can log on to my platform on Kahoot, and let us start this presentation today. So welcome to our interactive training webinar on refinery fired heaters. We have been doing this training for more than 20 years now, doing training of engineers, doing training of operators, and I learned doing these webinars last year when there was pandemic. So as I said, we would like for you to log on to Kahoot, and the pin is 1277333. So let's begin our presentation this morning. Let's keep it very informal. So if you have any questions, please send it to them. Send it to the GoToWebinar through the questions box. You can send it, and we will try to answer them today, or if not today, in our next webinar. So we want to find out from you, if you are managing a fired heater, if you are operating a fired heater, what is the heat duty of your fired heater? And we are asking you to put it in million BTUs per hour. What is the duty of a fired heater? You may be managing more heaters. So we have a few answers here. Some people are saying they have a heater between 150 to 250 million BTUs. Some are telling us 50 to 150 million BTUs. So just to let you know, the average size of fired heater in the US is about 78 million BTU for natural draft fired heaters and 120 million BTUs for a balanced draft fired heater. Fired heaters is a very unique equipment. You all know that. Almost 40 to 70% of the total energy in the refining industry is consumed by fired heaters. It's basically a high temperature heat exchanger. wherever heat exchanger cannot be used, we use fired heaters. So we'll talk about more on fired heaters. In fact, for the next 90 minutes, we'll be talking about fired heaters. So I want to ask you, when was the first oil refinery built in the world? Hey, I really like your response. Almost everybody got it right. The first refinery in the world was built in Romania in 1856. They had plenty of oil available at that time. In the US, the first oil was drilled around 1858 in Canada, or rather in North America, and the refinery was built around 1860. And the industry grew slowly in the beginning, but then it kind of, in the 20th century, uh, it took off because of the introduction of the automobiles. Well, thank you for the answers. Let's move on. Please don't worry about the scores. Those are kind of built in, so we need to remove them. So I want to start the session today with a brief introduction of myself. I'm a chemical engineer from IIT Kanpur. I passed out in 1974. And since 1976, I've been working on fired heaters and combustion systems. I worked with KT India, Engineers India, and KTI Corporation in the US. Since March 1996, I've been working with furnace improvements, fixing heaters for the past 25 years. And I want to tell you a little bit about furnace improvements. Furnace improvements is paying for this webinar, pays our salary, all the things. So we have to give it a couple of minutes before we resume our session. We started furnace improvements in 1996. We have 3 offices. We have a main office in Sugar Land. The engineering office is in Noida, India. We opened up in 2005. And then we opened a CFD modeling office in 2014. And our focus has been on revamping fired heaters, improving their efficiency, increasing their capacity, improving the run length, reducing NOx emissions. So that's what we have been doing for almost 25 years. We have 3 patents on improving the performance of fired heaters. We have a team of 30 engineers in Noida, India for doing all the engineering work. And we have a team of 4 people in the Pune office, and they do the CFD of combustions, heat transfer, fluid flows. I think we are the only heater company with its own CFD modeling. We take pride in doing high quality technical work. Because of the time difference, we are practically working around the clock. We are very focused, we are very small, so we are able to keep schedules. And our philosophy is do it once, do it right. So we think that is the most efficient way of doing business or fixing heaters. So just do it once, do it right. I also want to thank our team of engineers, especially process people, and especially my colleague Deepika. She has worked very hard for the past 3 weeks on putting this presentation together. They have done all the hard work. I am just the front face. They asked me to present it. So they have done an excellent job of putting this presentation, putting it on Kahoot, and even writing the script for me. So basically, thank you, team. So In our first session, we covered fired heaters. We talked about typical problems in fired heaters. One of the things we had asked all our participants in the first session was to give us 3 problems in fired heaters, what they are experiencing, and we had almost 300 to 400 bullet points to cover in our future seminars. We also covered fired heater nomenclature, different types of fired heaters, and that's what we covered in our first session. The session is available on YouTube. If you have not watched it, please go and watch it and give us your suggestions. We want to improve it even further. So today, we will be covering 3 major components of fired heaters. We will be covering radiant section, we will be covering convection section, we will be covering stack, we will talk about design considerations, we will talk about major issues, how you can improve capacity and efficiency by convection section revamps, talk about draft control, and also we will talk a little bit about API 560. Those of you who are not familiar with API 560, it is a API stands for American Petroleum Institute, and 560 is the standard for refinery fired heaters. So we will talk about the changes which have taken place in the last couple of months. We want to tell you, bring you up to speed. We will talk about those things as well. So here is a question for you. What percentage of heat is absorbed in the radiant section of a refinery heater? Uh, so there is a 50-50 split between 60% and 70%. For refinery fired heaters, 70% appears to be a better estimate than 60%. It is not that the 60% is wrong, but most of the heaters, what we see, have 70% heat transfer. And if you have air preheating system, then it is even higher than 70%. You could be going up to all the way up to 75%. So radiant section is the biggest section where the heat transfer takes place. So most of the work is done in the radiant sections. So let us talk about how the fired heaters came about. As we talked about, fired heaters were developed in 1800s, in the 19th century. And initially, the fired heaters used to be the batch process. They were like shell stills, and they would have several stills right next to each other. And as they would coke up, they will shut down a few, clean it up, and then again bring it back online. So that was the system when the refineries initially started. And then it turned out that we came to something which is known as pipe stills. Instead of the shell stills, heating the oil in a shell, in a cylindrical vessel, we started heating a pipe in the pipes. So that's why the name pipe stills came up. And what I want to tell you is, in these heaters, there was no radiant section. They were all based on convective heat transfer. So what we had was a combustion chamber. If you see the shell still over here, they are from refinery operations by Bill Berger, their courtesy. If you see, it's almost like an oil-fired or gas-fired boiler, and they would have plenty of those shell stills like these, where they will be having it. And then when they came up with the pipe stills, even the pipe stills did not have any surface in the radiant section. They were all based on the convective heat transfer. In fact, the convective heat transfer, they used to have so much heat transfer taking place in these few rows that they would start coking up. So then they came up with a design where they started recirculating flue gases to lower the temperature and lower the heat transfer rates in the shield tubes or in the convection section. But and later, around I would say 1940s or maybe around 30s, 40s, I don't know the exact time, when we came up with the concept of radiant heat transfer or started putting heat transfer surface in the radiant section. I can show you several configurations which were built historically, and we have to give credit to two very talented engineers, Walter Lobo and Evans, who in 1939 did this wonderful research and came up with the Lobo-Evans correlations for designing fired heaters. Those correlations are still used by all the fired heater companies. That is how good their work is. So courtesy Lobo-Evans, that's why we have radiant sections. And here you can see all sorts of heaters which were built. Historically, all heaters used to have horizontal tubes. And you can see those over here. They always used to have horizontal tubes. And then around I would say 1950s, the concept of vertical tube or vertical cylindrical heaters was introduced. In the beginning, okay, no, it's, yeah. Sorry. In the beginning, they would have two rows of tubes. I will cover this. Let's answer this. What type of problems you are having in radiant sections? Because most of the problems which we hear from our clients are in the radiant section. Most of the problems in the heaters are taking place in radiant section, and we have the results. You can see people have coking problems. People have flame impingement. Some have short tube life. And most of the problems are high tube metal temperature. So we will talk about all these problems a little later. But this gives you an idea about the heaters, what type of problems we are having and how to fix them. That's what our job is, fixing problems. So radiant section, as we said, is the biggest component of fired heater. And here the heat is transferred by radiation to the tubes. Most of the tube failures also occur in radiant section due to high tube metal temperatures. It's very important we have a good design of the radiant section. Now, radiant heat transfer takes place by electromagnetic waves. Also, radiation heat transfer travels in straight line. there is a very famous equation, I think all of you know it, Stephen-Boltzmann equation. It says the heat transfer, radiation heat transfer, is proportional to the absolute temperature raised to the power 4. So that's basically the radiant section. Let's talk about what are their components in the radiant section. The most important component are the radiant tubes. We are showing you two configurations, horizontal configuration and a vertical configuration. These tubes are supported by tube supports, and we have horizontal tube supports, and then we have vertical tube supports on the top. The firebox again comprises of three components, basically the burners, the casing, and the refractory. The tubes are connected by return bends, 180-degree return bends on both the ends to connect the tubes. That's what we are showing you over here. Now, some heaters have bridge walls or gravity wall, as we call it, in the center to convert it into two zones. And the roof of the radiant section is known as arch. And the burners are on the bottom. Now, I want to tell you bottom fired burners is also 70 years old. When the heaters were started, heaters were designed in 19th century or early 20th century. Everything used to be horizontal firing. The burners would always be located on the end walls. That's typically how the design of radiant section was. So now I want to show you the modern configurations of radiant sections. The first one is vertical cylindrical configuration, very, very common, and has been very popular in the last 60, 70 years. Then we have a horizontal tube cabin furnace, and the other one is horizontal tube box. The only difference between the two is the roof, the design of the roof. And cabin, if you have a sloping roof, we call it a log cabin or a horizontal tube cabin. That is the configuration we use for many heaters. These are all very popular configurations. For larger capacities, we combine the radiant sections, and you can see we have got two radiant sections and common convection section. So that is another configuration we have used. I will talk about double fired a little bit later, but yeah, you can see in this heater, we are putting the tubes in the center and burners on both sides. This is another configuration which is used for small capacity heaters like helical coil heaters. Helical coils for hot oil service is very, very common. Sometimes we put a convection section, sometimes we don't even put a convection section, and then it becomes like an all radiant heater. And then the arbor coil heater. This is used for catalytic reforming services. This has a lot of, this is used for where we have to process very large quantity of gases, like in a catalytic reforming unit. So what we have is we have a number of parallel passes. These heaters are categorized by low pressure drop or characterized by low pressure drop across the radiant coil. So there is only about 2 or 3 psi pressure drop over here. And there are large headers. We can also make it the other way, like a U. So some people make it like a U and burners on the end walls, or this is bottom fired. So there are several different configurations over here. And these are all different radiant coils designs, but if one thing which you will see over here is the convection section remains the same. Whether it, whatever, depending on, it does not depend on what type of firebox you have, but if you look at the convection section, it is design is always the same design. So we will cover that also in a little bit. So here is a question for you. Why do we need spacing between the radiant tubes? I don't know if you have seen the boilers. Boilers, the tubes are right next to each other. So I want people to type the answers over here. Looks like nobody is typing. Oh, we have some answers. Okay, good. So I think these are really, really good points. Expansion, definitely, we want to take care of the expansion of the tube. So that is one. The most important is re-radiation. Have re-radiation to the back of the tubes. Better flux distribution. Generally, in boilers, we are heating water, and water is an excellent conductor of heat, and water never cokes up. So we are able to put the tubes right next to each other. In fact, we make a combustion chamber by putting the tubes and then welding them together. So it's very, very important that we put these tubes and keep a spacing. What we have found out is the 2 diameter spacing is the most optimum spacing for these tubes. So most of the radiant sections will have tubes at 2D spacing. That's typically how, and they are kept about 1.5 diameters from the refractory wall. That is also by hit and trial, the industry came to an understanding that 1.5 diameters is the most optimum spacing for the radiant tube. So that's basically the reason we provide this gap, Well, let's move on. I think so. There are two configurations of tubes. We have single fired, which is a very, very common design. And here we have the refractory at the back, then we have tubes, and then we have the flame. And in the double fired, we have tubes in the center and flames on both the sides. So when you are heating from both the sides, you get very uniform heat flux and lower tube metal temperatures. And that way you can use higher average radiant flux. This technology is used in a lot of critical heaters like ethylene crackers, steam methane reformers, hydrocracker heaters, in several hydrotreater heaters, wherever the flux or TMT is this thing, even in coker heaters. Coker heaters also, we use double fire designs, especially the new ones, to minimize the residence time and use a quick heating. So these are all these advantages. Now the disadvantage is when you have a double fired, the box becomes much bigger, so the cost goes up. So you always have to choose between single fired and double fired. So this is a trick question. What is the percentage of heat transfer by re-irradiation in the radiant section? So we have three types of radiation. We have the direct radiation, which is taking place. And this also comprises of radiation from flame and radiation from hot flue gases. Most of the radiation which is taking place in the radiant section is by triatomic gases, carbon dioxide and water vapor molecule. That's what is transferring the heat. So, and then about 12% of the heat transfer is by re-radiation. And also, now that we are talking about in the radiant section, about 15% of the heat is transferred by convection actually. So we have the convection section, the movement of flue gases also transferring heat to the tube. So basically, direct radiation, re-radiation, and convection section, these are the three major modes of heat transfer in a radiant section.